Hello again, fellow BeachBum traders. We hope that you had a great trading week last week. We hope that you found our weekly game plan from last week helpful to you in your trading. Please let us know if you found our weekly game plan from last week helpful to you in the comments below. And please let us know how your trading went this week. Good or bad, what did you learn? How can we improve our weekly game plans to help you succeed in your trading? Now let's get started preparing our game plan for next week. Hello again, fellow BeachBum traders. Thank you for joining us to prepare our weekly game plan for the trading week of October 25th through October 29th. And let's see what kinds of treats we can find and what kind of tricks we can avoid in the markets for this week, again for October 25th through the 29th. And we wanted to just update you and make you aware of some upcoming videos that we'll be preparing from some of our lessons learned while trading, while traveling from Cujo Key, Florida, and from our recent travels throughout the Florida Keys. We'll include some lessons on how to prepare for trading while traveling, how to trade with limited internet connectivity, which we experienced in the Florida Keys, and how to most efficiently use watch lists in Webull. So now let's get started in looking at a recap of the markets, where the markets finished up last week. Hopefully our recent weekly game plans have helped you take advantage of the mid-October upswing from the bumpy ride in September, and hopefully your markets or your P&Ls are looking good now. Okay, just a real quick recap of the markets from Friday. I'm on the homepage of finbiz.com. As always, you can find our affiliate link to FinBiz in the description box below. We can see that all the markets ended on Friday the 22nd, a little flat, little up, little flat. We can see some bright red in the FANG area, and we'll talk a little bit more about the FANGs in a minute. We can see we had a little bit of a decline on Friday, but overall last week I believe was generally up, as we've seen since mid-October, as we've kind of been preparing for the past couple weeks. Some of the news, you can find headlines at the bottom of the homepage of FinBiz. We can see there's potentially some tricks and some treats in the markets potentially this week. We can see comments about losing steam, big tech, maybe impacted by rates, raising rates. We can see the 10 years now 165. It's up and down, but it has increased over the past week, and we can see some potential treat that may come from passing of the infrastructure bill. We can also see in the futures, oil has made an attempt a couple times to break 84. It's just hovering below 84 right now, and we'll talk about how we've been playing this upturn in oil and scalping that using drip, and how we continue to do that among the predictions of oil potentially going to 100. By some, and others saying that it's topped out. Nat gas been kind of flat now. I think the play right at this time in there isn't much of a play in nat gas right now. We saw gold was pushing and testing a breakout above 1800, and we'll see that in the longer term futures. And then we can see the Dow is up, and the S&P and NASDAQ are a little bit down in terms of the futures. Now let's look at each of the indices, and then we'll look at the futures again and see what that's telling us about how we should position for this week. Okay, let's look at each of the indices. I did a quick search for SPY in FinViz, and we can see it made a nice run up, and several hit a new all-time high, I believe, on Friday. We can see several little gaps. Again, it hit a new all-time high again. So we are going to be looking at shorting the SPY and the Dow, shorting the SPY using SPXU, which is a leveraged ETF to short the SPY, on a new all-time high. You can see it's still in an upward channel, but it looks like, it dojied on the top there, and we see approximately a double top at that all-time high. So again, we're going to be looking at shorting the Dow and the S&P using SPXU on these all-time highs. These will be scalp plays. Again, we'll expect a higher probability of a small percentage downturn versus the same level of percent jump up on an index. So that will help us, prepare for the upcoming taper, potential taper tantrum. We'll be talking about that more today and going forward into next week. So if we also look at the Dow, we're going to see all the indices kind of look similar. The Dow again hit a new all-time high on Friday as well, and it's forming kind of a similar pattern, double top. It has gaps up, and we'll be looking at shorting the Dow on all-time highs using SDOW, which is the leveraged ETF to short the Dow. We'll look at the Qs. The Qs really did not hit a new all-time high, and they're kind of hovering in the middle of their channel and have already kind of downturned. Again, since it's in the middle of the channel, didn't hit a new all-time high, it's above the 50 SMA, we're really not looking to long or short the Qs at this point in time. Similarly with IWM, on the Russell, it is moving up. It did break this trend line on the upper side of its channel. You can see this is a wedging channel. It's still it's still within kind of that range. It's above the 50 SMA. Again, we're not looking at any play in the Russell right now. The VIX, you may have seen in the comments last week, the VIX dipped below 15 briefly, and we did go long on the VIX. This futures jump is kind of bizarre, but it did. If you look at the chart on the VIX, it did dip below 15 briefly. We went long the VIX, scalped it for a decent profit on Friday. We're going to do that again. It hit a low of 1484 on 1022, and if it dips again below that 15 range, we're going to go long the VIX using the leveraged ETF UVXY. And again, we'll talk about that in more detail when we get to our updates to our watch list. But I hope that all helps, and now let's look at some of the futures. Okay, now I'm on the futures tab on FinViz, and we can see again, as we saw in the indices, we can see the Dow futures topped, pretty extended, flat, kind of a morning star type of candle at the end. Similarly, the S&P very extended, topping out. So again, both of those we're going to be looking at shorting with SDOW for the Dow, SPXU for the SPY. We can see the NASDAQ is a little bit different. It's kind of in the middle and already turned down. Similarly for the Russell, didn't really hit a new all-time high and turning down already. So we're not really looking at plays there. But S&P and Dow, we're going to use those to prepare for a potential taper tantrum kind of hedge against that using those short leveraged ETFs. We can see the VIX again really hit a new bottom here, and we'll be looking to long the VIX again, another preparation for a potential taper tantrum. We'll long the VIX, wait for a spike. In the meantime, we'll continue to scalp the VIX. These are all going to be scalp plays, short-term profits, and play them again as long as they'll play out. We see gold made a push up, and it's still trying to work its way over 1800. Maybe see a breakout. We can see silver had a nice run again. We'll talk about gold and silver going forward. Again, we're long several miners and the Credit Suisse ETNs, GLDI, and SLVO. And we continue to hold those, collect their nice monthly dividend as long as this play holds. Oil is very important. We saw it pushed above 84. It's still trying to go higher. Again, we're going to continue to scalp oil using drip as long as it keeps making new highs, trying to break 84. And then when it finally turns down, we'll hold that short with drip. Again, nat gas seems to kind of be now stuck around 530-ish or so, and hasn't really made a new run up. So we're not looking at any kind of plays in nat gas right now. Otherwise, the treasuries, we can see kind of bottom, the prices kind of bottom, popped up, so the yields kind of peaked, then retraced slightly, and we can see the dollar's down a little bit, and again that helps our commodities and is helping gold, silver, and some of the other metals. We saw some of the other metals also did well last week. So now let's look at the best performing industries and the ETF flows in Webull and go from there. Okay, now I'm on the Markets tab on the online browser version of Webull, and as always you can find our affiliate link and get 2 or more free stocks from Webull via our affiliate link in the description box. And we can see how the markets ended on Friday in Webull. Again, we can see decliners and advancers were kind of balanced on Friday. We can see the net inflows. We can see the New York Stock Exchange had a higher inflow. The NASDAQ had an outflow up until the very last minute on Friday. So that's interesting that there's this spike in inflow on the NASDAQ at the last minute on Friday. And people tend to say, yeah, that's market makers positioning for next week. Again, helpful information. We can see some news flow. We plan to hopefully produce a video soon on how to use this market tab, so please click the bell icon to notify of the future videos like how to use the markets tab in Webull and our travel tips while trading while traveling. We hope to publish soon. So again, we can look at the after hours briefly. Top gainers, this was interesting. Mark is an AI play. I didn't look into the news. It jumped 30%. They must have some news or positive earnings, but that's an AI play. Didn't see anything else really great. I know this has been a popular kind of meme stock, BBIG. People have been playing it. It's been jumping up and down. I'm not chasing that around. We can see top losers after hours. Fun was up big, and then after hours it dropped big again. That's a very volatile one. That it's a momentum play, and it's great for a day trade. But you could see some of these guys, they jump up and then they plummet down. So be careful, play accordingly. But momentum plays, day trades, that can be useful. So okay, so there's the after hours. Let's look at the again, and we'll point this out in a more detailed video. And we're going to talk a lot about earnings this week. There's a lot of earnings coming out. You can view the earnings calendar for the next couple days in Webull. This is very useful. It shows whether they're AMC after market close or BMO before market open. Again, very helpful. And we'll talk about earnings and how to adjust accordingly for that this week. A very important earnings week. Best performing industries from Friday. We could see again energy has been outperforming lately. We see coal and some of the related energy stocks. Paper, there's been talk of a paper shortage. Investment banks generally had good earnings, and so some of that has been positive. Freight and logistics, obviously there's still a supply chain shortage, and some of the railroads had positive earnings, positive plays. So we can see that's kind of the themes late Friday. If we go to the ETFs, again, I find this very useful because we can see money flow. We can see across all of them short on the NASDAQ. So we can see that pushed out in the futures, and we see that. We can see up on the Dow. People are betting up on the Dow still. People are a little bit more mixed on the SPY. You see SPXU, they're starting to short the SPY already. So that's kind of where we're headed to. Again, shorting the NASDAQ, shorting the Russell. And up on the VIX. So we can kind of see that flows from the end of last week is in line with our game plan for this week. Industries, again, this is interesting. We see wood, timber, lumber is one of the top performers. Oil and gas, not surprising, right? A little bit of healthcare, a little bit of financial services. Utilities inflow is interesting. If you start listening to Jim Cramer, etc., Bloomberg Weekly, the utilities, the dividend paid on utilities becomes less attractive as increasing inflation and other higher yield plays come into play. So it's interesting to see the inflows in utilities right now. Communication services, similarly, people, the analysts, etc., expect that to outperform going forward, but there's a outflow downturn right now. So energy, not surprising. Real estate, our O continues to outperform. Our LTC topped out. We got stopped out of that, but that gave a nice return. So real estate continues to be something we want to watch. Technology down, materials obviously up. We see metals and minerals again, and wood. So consumer cyclical down, negative, defensive up. Okay. We see commodities again, very similar. We see wheat. That's interesting. There's some agricultural flows up. Oil obviously. Cotton up. So commodities, again, have been tending up, and that's positive. And then across the other mixed, we can see TLT. So people are betting increasing on prices, which is interesting given the upcoming taper. So we'll talk about that in more detail again. Okay, let's talk about some of the economic data that came out last week and how that may impact us going forward, and then we'll look at the economic calendar for this week and how that may impact your trading this week. Last week we saw oil inventories unexpectedly declined on Wednesday the 20th, and then we saw a push up in oil prices, so that was a little bit unexpected given the high oil prices. We saw jobless claims data on Thursday the 21st was a little better than expected, and that probably continued to spur the market indices, the SPY and Dow, upward. We saw nat gas storage increased more than forecast on Thursday, and again, nat gas has been just kind of hovering, didn't make the big spike up, and that's again the inventory increase, so supply is increasing. We'll just keep an eye on that. If they say if there's a colder than expected winter, if we see that coming, we might see a new push in that gas, but not right now. On Friday, we saw U.S. service sector activity expanded at a faster than expected clip, while manufacturing activity declined slightly. But the big news was really what Powell said. Fed Chair Powell came out and said, well, inflation's maybe not as transitory as we had previously thought and said. So now he said he expects an elevated inflation spurred by global supply chain issues likely to last longer, likely well into next year, and people are interpreting well into next year, possibly 9 months into next year, so third quarter. Supply chain worries, inflationary pressures, and labor shortages are at the forefront of this earnings season. And again, we're going to talk about earnings right now, both currently and going forward. And then we can see analysts expect earnings to rise. Currently, they're up from the previous expectations, so current earnings are expected to be good. But then we see going forward, they're likely to decline. But we can also see these projections of top line growth, 18%, bottom line growth 50, 60, 70, all positive, will launch equity prices to higher levels. So all of this tells us that there's inflationary concerns, there's supply chain issues, etc. We've been talking about this for several weeks, how to position accordingly. We've been positioning into inflation hedges for some time. That seems to now be sinking in, and even Powell saying maybe it's not as transitory as we were saying before. So now let's look at the economics calendar for next week. And again, you can go to investing.com. We'll put a link to this resource in the description box. You can go to news, economics calendar. You can see current, day, week, etc. And scroll down through the days to see the events and the times that they're going to be reporting expectations, etc. So this is very useful to see what kind of economic data potentially may impact your current positions or your trading. The notable thing, obviously, there's a lot of data that's pertinent depending on what sector. But once we get to Friday, Thursday and Friday, we see you get your jobless claims and things like that, and then we get sentiment. So we get unemployment data, and then we get jobless claims data on Friday. So the sentiment data again is interesting. It doesn't seem to move the market as much, but obviously employment data will impact, and we can also see these inflation expectations. So we can kind of expect more of the same. The inflation will sink in, and we will probably tend to see again more flights into higher dividend paying stocks. Bonds, the yields on bonds may become more attractive. We might see more outflows in equities and inflows into bonds if the yields get above inflation. So we'll play accordingly. Okay, let's talk about earnings again. There are lots of earning reports this week. We'll look at the earnings calendar. I'll put a link to this resource, which is the earnings calendar on investing.com. Again, tons of earnings this week, so it's very important to listen and watch for and be ready to take advantages of opportunities due to irrational market reactions to earnings reports. This is again where we might see some tricks and some potential treats in the earnings reports this week. If the earnings aren't that bad and stock plummets, there may be an opportunity to scoop something up at a cheaper than expected price. Similarly, if it shorts, if it goes up and the earnings weren't that great and you were able and want to short, then there's opportunity there on some kind of irrational reaction. So, listen for those and take advantage of the opportunities. Some of our best plays have come from irrational reactions to earnings. Also, look for sympathy plays. If somebody in a sector reports great earnings and some of the other related stocks don't move, if they start to move, there's an opportunity there because people will expect their earnings to be good too. Similarly, if somebody reports bad earnings, it may impact other stocks in that sector. So again, there's a lot of earnings this week. It's very important to listen to those earnings and particularly the market reaction. How does the market react to what is said, both in the announcement and in the conference call? Sometimes the reaction doesn't hit until they have the conference call, and then you start to see a reaction. You want to play accordingly. FANG and Big Tech reports on Monday the 25th, Tuesday the 26th, and Thursday the 28th. And again, how those big tech, not only will they impact those stocks in that sector, but since they're so heavily weighted in the S&P and NASDAQ particularly, if it's negative, if the market reaction is negative to their earnings, even their outlook, it's going to pull those indices down. And again, that's another opportunity for shorting those indices. If anything, any bump in the road in the FANGs can really drag those indices down. We're also, and we posted this in a comment, replied to another BeachBum trader on our Bud due diligence video, that we're going to be anxiously waiting for their earnings and see what the market reaction is to Bud's earnings. Several of the other beverage companies have had less than expected hard seltzer results. Bud has quite a bit of hard seltzer products, and if their results are similarly disappointing, it may drop. Might give us an opportunity to buy at a bottom or support level, which is what we would be waiting for. Again, Bud, I believe, still pays some dividends. It's a bit of a turnaround. So if we can find a good support level, that would be good. Please see our due diligence video. We'll put a description or a link in the description box to that. But essentially it says the same thing, and we're kind of waiting for a support level before we jump into Bud right now. Long term, we think it's positive, but we're just waiting for the opportunity. Next, we'll talk about some themes and strategies going forward, and then we'll update our watch list. But again, if you want to see the details of the earnings calendar, you go to markets, stocks, earnings calendar on investing.com. You can see in detail who's reporting when, what the expectations are, and you can see what companies. We see Facebook, etc. on Monday. Again, there's just tons this week, so I would highly recommend you go through, see both the individual stocks and the sectors that are reporting on a given day, and how that may impact your portfolio going forward. So please be prepared. Okay, let's talk about some trends, future themes, strategies. Let's kind of do some forward planning, just so you're aware. And again, we'll talk about these more in detail as they approach. But again, just to start thinking forward, to start planning forward, what are some of these trends and themes that we want to be in a position to benefit from going forward, or to hedge ourselves against if it may have a negative impact. One of the most important is the next Fed meeting is November 2nd and 3rd. We expect the Fed to announce their tapering at that time. Powell's still saying the tapering will continue through mid next year. We've said, everybody thinks that's about June. It is possible that tapering may accelerate due to increasing inflation, not so transitory inflation. They're still saying interest rates won't start increasing until after the tapering finishes, but again, you have some Fed officials coming out more hawkish, saying they should raise interest rates quicker to stem inflation, and we keep hearing inflation. So I will put a link in the description box to the FOMC calendar where you can find the meeting dates. Again, the next meeting where they have an announcement is the 2nd and 3rd. And you can find that below, and then you can see the December date. So again, we're starting to position, and you're going to see in our updates to our watch list, we're starting to position for this taper announcement and a potential, even though the market knows this tapering is coming, there's always the potential for a taper tantrum, and that may shock the market down. We expect a quick recovery. But again, we want to be prepared for any kind of taper tantrum. We're starting to think about the holidays. They're announcing the earnings that are coming out right now are from summer. So if your expectations are, think about how did that company do in the summer. But now we want to start positioning for the holidays. Who's going to do well in the holidays? And again, those announcements won't come out until probably, early next year. But we want to be in a position to benefit from the companies that are going to do well for the holidays. So, we still like silver and gold. We think, does anybody remember the Burl Ives song, silver and gold? We think, people will be spending for the holidays, and they're probably going to buy luxury items that they can get. And we think that will continue to spur demand in silver and gold. So we're still bullish silver and gold through the holidays. We're also thinking about, what else is possibly beaten down that may benefit from holiday spending. And we've heard a number of the cosmetics, their earnings were not very good for the summer. Again, we think people bought their cosmetics, etc. on the initial reopening, didn't buy a lot over the summer. Ultra Beauty had disappointing earnings. They were down. Other cosmetics were down. So we're thinking that may be another play for the holidays. So we're going to be watching Coty. We've owned and made money on Coty in the past. Their earnings are on the 4th. They used to pay dividends. Again, I think there's a potential turnaround play. We'd be interested to hear what other fellow BeachBum traders think are potential good plays in that sector. And then with the supply chain issues, made in America, handmade, may benefit from those supply chain issues. So Etsy, which is very high right now, but what others? If you know of companies that are made in America and may benefit from supply chain issues, please leave a comment and let us know for the benefit of all your fellow BeachBum traders. So now we'll start looking at our specific updates to our watch list, and then we'll wrap. Okay, now I'm in the watch list tab on the online browser version of Webull, and here's our watch list that we use for a weekly basis. Again, you can find a link to Webull, get 2 or more free stocks in the description box below, and please see our videos on how to create a watch list and how to maintain a watch list, again in the description box. So let's see what we want to add, subtract, etc. from our watch list for this week. Again, we've been talking about the taper tantrum. We want to start hedging for that, positioning for it. It's going to, the next Fed meetings, November 2nd and 3rd. So as we've talked about, we want to short the SPY on new all-time highs using SPXU. You'll see a couple strategies for these, using these leveraged ETFs to short, is to look at the inverse. So it's typically easier to see the top in the upward in the bullish ETF than to pick the bottom on the shorting one. So for finding the bottom in SPXU, you can look for the top in UPRO to find that bottom. So when that tops and turns down, then SPXU is probably bottom, so that's a good position. You can also watch the SPY index, but they're not absolutely 100% correlated to the index. Similarly, we're looking to short the Dow on any new time highs using SDOW. Again, you can see the top in UDOW to help find the bottom in SDOW. We're going to continue to scalp the VIX at the bottom using UVXY. We went long the VIX on the 22nd. We got stopped out of that, but we made a decent profit. So we're going to continue to scalp the VIX as it drops below 15. We'll go long as long as the UBXY continues up. We'll use a manual trailing stop and wait for it to spike and then cash that out. So we're going to, or you can see in the comments from last week's weekly game plan that we are now long Erie. Again, please watch the comments for the weekly game plans and also our Twitter feed. We will post when we go long these watch list stocks, or if we happen to find something new, we will post that in the comments for all of our BeachBum traders' benefit. You can also see our due diligence video on Erie and why we thought this was a good opportunity and how we intend to play it. A new one, we're going to leave DDD, 3D Systems in the watch list. A new one that we're adding for this week is DPW. DPW is pretty diverse. They have some EV stuff, but the hot topic is their Bitcoin mining. And you can see that they announced some positive news recently from their Bitcoin mining subsidiary. They're building a data center for Bitcoin mining. They're buying rigs, etc. It looks like a nice stable support level bottom, and we're looking for a spike on news. So we're going to be looking at DPW for a long 220 or so. So I'm also going to go to my stocks chart so we can see the graphs. Again, from the stocks chart, you can also maintain your watch list. You'll see our video on how to maintain your watch list from the stock chart. We can look at the details of each stock here as well, so you can see, we're looking for a support level at 220 for DPW, and then we would go long there. So again, we're going to keep scalping oil using drip. Again, the inverse is gush, so you can look for a top in gush to find the bottom in drip. As oil pushes up over 84, that's where we'd be looking for a bottom on drip to go long. We'll leave E-man there. That's ARVR. It's we've got a target around 205 or so. It just hasn't come back down yet, but we'll leave it there for now. We're going to take FCAP off. It's a regional bank. It's so low float, it just is too illiquid. It just jumps around, and we're a little concerned that even if we got in, we might not be able to get out at a good price due to its low float and illiquid nature. So we're going to take FCAP off. And you can see how easy it is to maintain your watch list from here. You just select right click and do delete. Again, we're still looking at the fangs. We'll look to short the fangs if it reaches the top. It really hasn't come back down to where, so you can see I've got the short on fangs and long on fangs, and we're looking for it to bottom and then turn up. We'll see. We'll leave cold on. That's the nat gas short, although again I don't think there's a play there right now. LMFA, you can see our due diligence video on LMFA. It jumped up already, and it may or may not come back down. This was interesting. They came out with an offering at $5 with or the offering was a share at $4.75 with a 5-year warrant. It closed on the 19th, but they bid it up over that $5 warrant, which is odd because those warrants have become immediately exercisable. So everybody that got those warrants, they're already in the money, and they're going to exercise those warrants. So there may be some profit taking in LMFA, which may drive the price back down. And if we do get a dip, we'll scoop up LMFA. Please again see our due diligence video for the details of why we like LMFA. We're not going to add IBM to our watch list, but or on this watch list, but we have it on a secondary. We're watching it for a bottom. They had disappointing earnings. We bought IBM in the past around 117, again on disappointing earnings, and made a nice profit. They still pay a decent dividend. This is a long-term turnaround play. We'll see if it comes down far enough where we want to buy, but we're not going to put it on this week's, but we are watching it for a longer-term play. Talked about the Dow. Tate, we're going to leave it on the watch list. It's still not down where we would like to buy it, but if it does come back down to our price target somewhere down here, we're still interested in Tate. Again, see our due diligence video for the reasoning and how we want to play that. We're now long on WWR, posted in the comments last week. Again, you could see we talked in more detail last week's game plan video, and there's a link in the description box below about our rationale and how we want to play WWR. So we're now long, we're waiting for news, spike on news. We would cash out on that spike on news. So otherwise, you can see, you know, we're watching some of these upward leverage ETFs to find the top on those, so we can play the bottom on those shorts. And then there's UVXY. We're going to use that to scalp the VIX again when the VIX reaches another bottom. We could see it's pretty, hit 1484 and then popped up a little bit. If it comes back down there, we'll be long the VIX again. So those are our updates right now to this week's watch list. Again, please watch the comments of this game plan video and our Twitter feed. As we buy or sell things, we will post those in the comments of our weekly game plan video for y'all's benefit. And we hope this all helps, and we hope you have a great trading week. We hope that you like our weekly game plan for the trading week for this week. Thank you for watching the video to the end. If you found this helpful, we hope that you will choose to subscribe to our BeachBum Trading YouTube channel, and please click the bell icon below to automatically be notified whenever we publish a new video. Please also share this with your fellow traders and friends via the share button included below. And let us know if you found our weekly game plans helpful in the comments included below. And let us know how we can improve. What would you like to see more, less of, etc. Thank you again for watching. Good luck and have a great trading week. Bye.